Welcome everyone, I hope you're all having an excellent holiday season, and today my friends, I'm here to talk to you about my wish list for multiplayer changes that I'd like to see implemented into the Total War Warhammer franchise at some point, either in the near future in Warhammer 2 or in Warhammer 3. I think it'd make the game a lot more enjoyable for newer players, more experienced players. It would just kind of make it a little bit less daunting and also would make it a little bit more engaging. So let us go ahead and begin by talking about the first change, which pertains to the seasons and the leaderboard. So I think that kind of the way the leaderboard is now, and you see it in other games like in StarCraft 2, for example, or in Magic the Gathering Arena, they have a season system. So for example, it's like 2 months or 3 months. It could even be a month. And this would be something that obviously could be discussed. And if you guys have feedback pertaining to this, I'd love to hear it. And that goes for anything I talk about in today's video. This is stuff you like, that's not a great idea. I do it this way. I'd love to hear feedback. And I think that's really going to be the focal point of this video, is getting feedback and perhaps something that we can pass along to a creative assembly someday. So I think having a season cap, so essentially every 2 or 3 months, the ladder resets, because currently now you'll see players with like 2,000 or 3,000 games. And it's like climbing the ladder, really, like most players that I know, tournament players and guys who are very serious in multiplayer, they really don't touch ladder at all anymore for a multitude of reasons. I mean, they might go on to get a couple games just casually here and there, but it's not terribly engaging. Like, for example, if they had a 2 to 3 month season, or let's just say 2 months for the sake of this video, at the end of every season, you climb up, there's a bit of a rat race. At the end, it's going to be exciting, right? There's 2 or 3 days left until the ladder or the season concludes. Players are going to be streaming and just going and trying to get to the top of the ladder, which I think would be super fun and super engaging, right? Because at the end of the ladder, at the end of a season, there's some sort of a reward. So there's a couple ways you could do this. Players who reach a certain rank could get a Steam achievement. They could unlock a unique card or a banner for their Steam profile, all sorts of stuff like that you could do. But the other thing that could be done as well is I think it'd be cool if there was a kind of a legacy leaderboard. So for example, every single season, you can go all the way back and see who the top players were at each season. So for example, if you were in season 1, you got like a top rank, and somebody goes back in another kind of a drop down and can see, oh, I want to go see who was the top player in season 1. They can go and check that. So the two things essentially is a resettable season every 2 months to kind of make it more of a fresh experience that people want to go on ladder, want to try and climb. And they're not climbing against, I mean, I've seen people who haven't played in months who are just sitting at the top of the ladder because they had like thousands of games, and it's kind of ridiculous. So I think it'd be kind of cool if it resets, players can go in, newer players are going to be more engaged because it's kind of like a goal or a challenge to try and climb to a certain point. And it's an attainable challenge, not something that requires like millions of hours to play. And on top of that, at the end of the season, there's some sort of a Steam reward. And also you get added to some sort of a legacy drop down of sorts that says, hey, I was a season 1 champion, this, that kind of thing. I think that'd be really cool. So that's the first one. The next one is, I'm not sure about the current MMR system for multiplayer, but I feel like when I go into ladder, and usually I kind of float between, let's say, rank 50 and rank 150 or 200, depending on what kind of builds I'm playing and things like that. So, I mean, typically, obviously I know there's not a ton of people who are playing multiplayer compared to campaign and things like that, but a lot of times when I go on, I do end up playing against players who are really new or relatively inexperienced. And obviously on my multiplayer profile, I have probably over 1,000 games played, at least in the current rendition of the bracket. And I would like to see some sort of changes. Granted, if there's just not that many people queuing for quick battles, I would rather play someone than no one, right? But that's just something that perhaps could be looked into. I don't really know the current nature of the MMR system, but I've heard this feedback from a lot of people that they'll go on and either play against someone who's far better than them, or they'll go on and play someone who's obviously much newer and doesn't have the multiplayer experience. And it's a little bit, obviously discouraging for newer players, and for advanced players, it's like, why even bother with ladder? I'm just going to go, play with my friends and just play in house, which is fine for sure. But I think it'd be cool to have like that community of like running into people on ladder and things like that. So that's the next one. Now, this third one, number 3, we're going to be talking about here. This is probably one of the biggest ones that I think would be like groundbreaking for multiplayer, for quick battles more specifically, because obviously when you're playing in house with friends and tournaments, this could be something that you could turn on and off, much like Army Limits. So this is essentially dealing with draw kiting. This doesn't happen to me too often, but probably, let's say, like 2 or 3 times a month, I do get draw kited. I'll be in a battle. I'll have clear league 1, for example, but I'll have units that can't catch what my opponent has left. They may have like a claw and a gash, and they have like 30% of the balance of power, and they just run in circles for 20 minutes and waste your time. It's one of those type of experiences that, for me, it's like, okay, it's not a big deal. I have a community of people I can play with and things like that. It's very frustrating for sure, and discourages me from playing on ladder. But for someone who's new, like, just imagine you're a new player. You come onto ladder, you're excited. You've been watching maybe videos on YouTube or like tournaments, things like that, whatever, Twitch. You come on, you're excited, you just get draw kited, and like, obviously the player is just being toxic to you in general. It's like that's going to be one of those like defining moments, I feel, that can really kind of dissuade you from wanting to play multiplayer at all. So that's something, and the solution for this is a solution I think would actually be pretty good. So at the 15 or 20 minute mark, ranked quick battles are 20 minutes. At the 15 or 20 minute mark, I think that a capturable objective should appear in the center of the map. So it's kind of like a flag in siege battles that appears. And I'm not sure how you would implement this exactly, but a flag appears at the 15-minute mark. So the player who's draw kiting and running away and just obviously is losing the battle and just being obnoxious is going to have to come to that objective, or else they're going to lose the game. So then the player who's having to chase can just go sit on it, and it's going to force the other player into conflict, or they're simply going to get a game lost. Now, this can be like a ticking down timer, or at the 20-minute mark, whoever has more capita or real estate on this thing wins. I don't really know about the best way to implement it, but I think a capturable objective appearing only after 15 minutes. So it's not going to affect like 98% of battles, just those battles where someone's draw kiting or a situation like this, it appears. It could even be like the 18-minute mark. It appears, and obviously for custom battles and tournaments, this would just be turned off because you have your own rules to enforce. But for the Wild West of ladder, I think that something like this could be cool. And in Shogun 2, we did have this in multiplayer. There was capturable buildings and dojos and things like that. I think it would be something that could be implemented, and I think it'd be really good for multiplayer because if you win a battle, you're chasing this person who's just running with like some dark riders, and you have like great swords and like, stuff that can't catch them, like maybe some Empire Knights. You go sit on the objective, you get the win that you earned, and that player gets punished for their bad behavior. Now that's number 3. Number 4 is something that this is much more of a kind of a pipe dream one. I don't think this would probably ever happen, but I don't know, maybe it is something. It's a much more complicated system, and for a game that's more focused on campaign than multiplayer, I just don't think we'd see this, but this is kind of like a pipe dream one. Let's just throw it out there. So for number 4, we have a reporting system. So obviously on ladder, I'm sure most of you guys have had this experience of running into toxic players who are either very verbally aggressive or again, draw kite or have, behavioral stuff like this. Now, what if, a lot of other esports games, I know League of Legends has this, but what if there was a team of volunteers? And I know some people who are very like diehard, fans of the multiplayer community. They love the people. They love what it represents. Very, very active, right? What if Creative Assembly had an approved panel of volunteers that were essentially kind of just like volunteers that would review reports. So for example, you play someone, they're very toxic, they report, or you report them. The replay then goes into like kind of a filtration system, or maybe it sends the replay file to this group of volunteers in the game. I'm not really sure how you would implement this, but I think it'd be cool. And then those volunteers, of course, could review it. They could see the text, and they could also see the behavior in the game, like the draw kiting, things like that. And if there's like a regular pattern, those players could then, be banned, right? Because they're toxic to the community, they ruin people's experiences. And, I think that could be something that's cool. That one's a harder one to implement, and I don't think it's something that, would want to be taken on. But I think that if it was done by volunteers and there was like just a system in place that you could report and it was sent like to folks who were approved volunteers, like, multiplayer veterans and things like that, who could watch it and evaluate that for behavior and things like that. Granted, there's a lot of variables that come into play. Like, you have to make sure that people aren't being biased and just banning someone because they don't like them. The volunteers would have to really be screened and, trained in a certain way. I don't know. That's just kind of a pipe dream one that I thought could be nice for sure. The next one I think would be really, really fun. So in Warcraft 3, The Frozen Throne, way, way back in the day, they had in-game tournaments. So essentially, this is in-game tournaments. So we obviously run our community tournaments and things like that, but it'd be really cool that if like something appeared like where once a week there was an automated tournament that was run. So essentially you would queue up for the tournament, you'd be matched up against your first opponent just like you would in a quick battle. You go into a lobby, everything like that. It could even have like picks and bans implemented. So like you could like ban factions and pick. You could have a great pick and ban system in place. You play a best of 3 versus someone, and then once you're finished, you just kind of wait. In Warcraft 3, they had tournaments that were run. You just simply queued up. If you won, you kept going. If you lost, you were eliminated. And I think that would be a really fun system. Like I'd get hyped to go in and like see who I'm randomly matched up against. And plus it's like a smaller tournament. They can be like 4-man or 8-man or 12-man, whatever. But I think having an in-game tournament that, aside from community tournaments would be a really fun thing to kind of implement. I'm not sure about how you would do that, but I think it wouldn't be too hard in a lobby for you to come in. You're in the lobby. If you're the player or whatever on the left side, you pick and ban 2 and you pick 1. Like I feel like that could be done with the UI and it could be really, really fun. So obviously there's things down the road. Those are the main things. And there's a ton of balance changes that I think might be warranted, but I think we'll save that for another video, just talking about the minutia and the balance changes and all that good stuff. But way down the road, obviously I'd love an Avatar Conquest style of thing. That was my favorite aspect of Shogun 2. I thought it was just the best. So I'd love something like that, but really just to kind of re-summarize our talking points in this video. And again, a lot of these are kind of ideas that aren't super hashed out, but they're just kind of general ideas that I think would be good. So number 1, having a limit to the seasons. They're 2 months long. I think there's an aesthetic reward or maybe a legacy kind of leaderboard that you can see who the champion of each season was. Number 2, better MMR system for multiplayer. Number 3, dealing with draw kiting using capturable objectives at the 15 or 20 minute mark. A reporting system, in-game tournaments in the style of like Warcraft 3, Frozen Throne. I thought they were really fun. And way down the road, Avatar Conquest. So that kind of just sums up everything. That's my Christmas wish list here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. And again, this is like a perfect opportunity. Just put your feedback in the comment section below. Maybe somebody will have a gem of an idea. And if you see a really good idea, upvote it. Then we can take that. We can maybe form a package or an email. And I don't know, maybe it'll make a difference. Who knows? All right, guys, thank you so much for joining. I hope you're all having an excellent holiday season, enjoying some time off with your family, your friends, your loved ones. And yeah, that's pretty much it for now. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you around. Cheers.